Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I'm your host, Stacey J. Dempsey. And like always, thankfully, I have the one and only dad and the other sister with me. Good morning to the two of you.
Good morning.
Good
And
morning.
we have a super special extra guest, another daughter. So it's just a whole family affair today. So welcome, Emily, to our podcast.
Thank you.
So before we start, having a conversation with Emily, we first wanted to highlight that it is Women's History Month. So I feel like right now is when like that sound of applause should be going off in the background. And so Women's History Month, you're probably seeing a lot of things on social media, maybe even a lot of conversations. And we were just, before we hit record, we were talking about just all of the ways that women of our past have really transformed, for the life that we live now. A lot of the privileges, a lot of the things that we're able to do now, even a lot of the inventions, a lot of the modern day conveniences that we enjoy, they were created by a woman. So, I like my garbage disposal. I mean, that's probably a first world problem, but shout out to the woman who created that. And when I think about women's history, I think of Susan B. Anthony, who really fought a very long fight for us to be able to vote. And now, if we look just really not that much further into the future, about 100 years or so, we now today have our first African American woman vice president. So, in such a short amount of time, we went from not even having the right to vote to holding office at a very high level. And so, Jennifer, anybody that comes to mind for you that when you think about Women's History Month, or Dad, or Emily?
I mean, listen, those are the two that I think really resonate. It means a lot. But I think, as we're talking about Women's History Month and as we're celebrating, as a woman entrepreneur, it's a great time to reflect back on our journey. The women in our family, maybe the women that are listening to this podcast, on maybe where you started and where you got to. I know for me, there was a time that it was like, can I do it all and do it all well? So it's just a time to reflect and to celebrate your own journey, and to know that, as women in business, it's our job to continue to open those doors for the women behind us and continue to be role models for our kids.
Absolutely. Well said. Dad, anybody come to mind for you?
Well, I mean, again, there's probably several, that when you look back in history that just were, um, you know, groundbreaking. You know, somebody that comes to mind very quickly is like Amelia Earhart, in the aviation world. Um, and then, there's just, you really think that, as you said, Stacy, going back to a time when women were considered to have a certain role, which was you know being a wife, being a mother, and raising kids. And again, I mean, I do want to say also that for those women who choose to be mothers and full-time stay at home, you know shout out to you, because again, that's a worthy vocation to do that. So I don't some people would say that, well, that's kind of a waste of someone's skills. Well, I disagree. I mean, I think if that's your choice, I mean, I think and it's a very, very difficult job to do that. So, um, but, there are a lot of women who even are able to do both, right? I mean, I look at you and Stacy, you and Jen, with kids and, out there in the marketplace, trying to juggle families and young children and, you know, and thank God for, Emily, who plays a pretty significant role in, your guys' lives with your kids. And, so, but, it just is amazing what, even over my lifetime, it seemed like when I was a young kid, what you saw women do would be working in, maybe a grocery store, school teachers, mostly all the school teachers I remember having, were all women, very few men. Um, and, secretarial work or those kind of things to where now, they're, as you mentioned, politics at high level, they're, CEOs of major companies, major Fortune 500 companies, um, and then playing significant roles at every level in corporate America. And then as what we talk about with the entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, certainly seeing more women um, business owners than ever before. And then in our business, which is insurance, financial services, certainly seeing a big uptick of women, participating in that, um, and doing extremely well. So, again, just a real shout out to all those ladies in the past that, laid the groundwork, suffered, a lot, I'm sure, to get get us where we're at today. And so, I mean, I even look at women's sports. I mean, women's sports now is really, is a major um, influence out there, in the sports world. I mean, it's just from basketball to golf to soccer. I mean, just a lot. A lot of opportunities out there for women to excel. So again, kudos to those who paved the way, for this to happen, especially for a dad that has a bunch of daughters. So, you know,
That's
big
right.
big
You better
fan of
say
all
that.
those folks.
Better say
So
that. It's outnumbered. But
that's
uh
right.
but it's interesting that you say that, Dad, because just last month we were in Texas for our company's professional seminar, and one of the breakout sessions that Emily and I attended was simply called Women in Insurance. And it was a panel discussion. First time they had ever done it. They gave us a really great lunch and a lot of good information in that panel. But the one thing that I walked away from, from the seminar, I was like, I did not realize the women that they had on the panel, that they were all like CEOs, vice presidents within our company. And so obviously it's a large insurance company, many, I guess, branches, and I was like, I didn't know that so many women were in these. Again, they were vice president of marketing and, yeah, CEO of ag. I mean, just there was probably six women there, and if you saw them, I mean, they looked like me and Emily. So, it was like, wow, that's really, really cool. So speaking of professional seminar, some other cool things that happened there that I want to start now with Emily was that Emily is now into what, your second year of being an agent, which means that she is 1099, baby. It means that she is her own boss. She is an entrepreneur. And, this is not Emily's first step into a career. So she did have a whole career before these last 2 years. So, Emily, we want to start talking with you a little bit about how the last 2 years have been for you, making the transition from being a key person in our business, which was helping to manage and serve our customer service department. But why don't you, if you can share maybe a little bit of thoughts on what the last 2 years has been like for you, and maybe how at a professional seminar you landed on the stage full of with other men winning agent of the year in that side of the entire company. Hit us.
Um, well, okay, so what the last 2 years has been like? Well, going from, I guess, a salaried position, a a lot of, you know, security, if you will, consistent paycheck, consistent hours. You really had, you knew what, for the most part, what to expect day in and day out. Um, to going to the exact opposite. I mean, that's scary. That's not that's pretty terrifying. Um, was the transition difficult? I mean, was it scary? Yes. Was it difficult? Um, I'm gonna say it wasn't that difficult. I think I was more worried, more concerned about the employees that I was leading, that they would feel confident in themselves without me there. I wanted to make sure that they were okay. And then I almost worried about myself later. Um, and it worked out. They all are great and thriving and all that. So I think once I knew they were okay, I kind of worried about myself at that point. And I was scared. I wasn't, didn't really know. I knew what to expect. Um, I knew a little bit of what to expect just because I've been in the insurance world, but I didn't know what being an entrepreneur truly looked like for me. I could see what it looked like for all of my other family members, but I think it all looks different for each person. So I didn't know what it was going to look like for me. Um, I could have tried to mimic what I thought entrepreneurship was for Dad or Cece or Joel or Jennifer, but then that wouldn't have been authentic to me and probably would have been even more scary. So I listened. I did ask for advice. I did kind of, you know, do what my dad told me to do in certain areas because I mean, you're not going to argue with somebody that's successful. So I just kind of did what felt right to me, but listened to all of the feedback that I could get, um, that could help me move forward, that could help ease some of the scariness and some of the anxiety, but also find my own way. So I think it's been about a year, not quite 2 years yet. It'll be 2 years in September. Um, but I think I've only recently found my own way, found kind of my rhythm, found where I don't wake up every day super nervous about what's to come. Um, and so I feel good now. I'm not as scared. I'm not as anxiety ridden. And I'm just kind of, but I'm still following what I've been doing, staying true to myself, what feels right, but also looking for advice and help from others and asking for guidance and following that to the best of my ability.
So would you say before you kind of made, we'll say, the leap into being an entrepreneur, becoming an agent, there was obviously there was a lot of conversations. It was making a plan. But even with the best laid out plan, anything can happen, right? Like it's like this is great if this works, but I've been doing life enough to know that this might not go as planned. So what you're saying now is, you're feeling better that you worked your plan and obviously it is working out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which again, you don't know. You can have the best plan in the world, but what you sometimes often forget is, especially as an entrepreneur, how's your personal life going to affect your business life? How's your business life going to affect your personal life? And you have to navigate both of those almost separately, but together at the same time. Um, and when I say personal life, it's not just thinking about your spouse, but thinking about your children or your nieces and nephews or your siblings, and how being present in your personal life you want to also make sure you're present in your business life, and so it's almost, you're almost navigating your entire life completely different
Yeah.
than what you once did.
Balance looks different.
Balance looks very different. Very
Yeah,
different. Yeah.
right.
And Stace, I remember, when, Emily and I were discussing, the transition from, customer service and managing a customer service team, that employee status over to sales and commission. Um, then, I mean, as I remember discussing with her, it's not about, you know, if you can do it or not. Clearly you can do it, because in many ways you do it every day in your job. I think the thing that we talked about a lot was, changing your mindset, from, your prior role from employee to now you're thinking as a business owner, an entrepreneur, and, anywhere from, again, your time, because, when you're working in an office and you're running, your employee, you know that, hey, this is every day is going to be my day. Where now, you're setting appointments, you're maybe having to work, in the evening some, whatever the case may be, so just changing your mindset that, you're no longer an employee, but you're an entrepreneur. And I think that's important for people, or for our listeners, that are thinking about making that switch from, you know, being in a full-time job or position, and now transitioning to your own business, or something like Emily did. You're transitioning to a different role, maybe inside the same industry, but it's just different. It's not, and so how do you manage that mindset? And so, that's one of the things that, we talked about a lot, and I think it was real. That was a real, you know, challenge that we had to work through early on. So,
Yeah, as we're having this conversation, one thing that comes to mind, we were talking about this in the salon, where as an employee, it almost feels reassuring when you have someone else taking all the risks. And what I mean by that is somebody's telling you, like, when you're going to work, when you're coming in, when you're leaving, how much you're getting paid, how much you're going to charge, right? Somebody's telling you. And so that's kind of like in some ways, an easy world to live in. But as an entrepreneur, when you get that freedom, right? I get to create my schedule. I get to take as many vacations as I want. I have control in our world of pricing and things like that. But now you're in charge of decision making, right? And so to have to make decisions and stand firm in the decisions and back your decisions can be a scary place to be without, having somebody tell you exactly what you need to be doing. Um, so pros and cons for both, but I can understand where Emily's coming from when that employee role seems like it can be a little bit easier, but yet entrepreneurship is much more rewarding in so many more ways.
would you
So
agree with that, Emily?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would. Well, it is more. I would agree, and I wouldn't say that being an employee um is necessarily easy. Um, I would say it's more secure. It makes you feel more secure. I know, at least from in the insurance world, what our employees go through is easy. Their day to days aren't easy. Um, but there's just so much more security in that. Where in the entrepreneur world, it's not easy to feel secure. At least not where I'm at in my career. And I always find it interesting. It's people, it's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I can go on as many vacations as I want. I can, um, you know, take off every Friday. I can only work this many hours. And it's like, and a lot of the world views it that way. And you can, but you're not making any money. So, it's like, I recently went on a vacation to Tennessee, and it was great, but probably about 2% of me wasn't there because I was worried about these cases that I had lingering, and I'm waiting for clients to make a decision, and I'm waiting for them to make a decision, because if they say, they go with me, then that means I'm going to make a paycheck next month, and that's great. But I'm all the way in Tennessee, and I don't have a lot of, so 2% of me wasn't fully there. Right. So yeah, I could go on a vacation, but I couldn't be fully present. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's just what people don't think about that aren't in the entrepreneur world. Um, so yes, I agree. Um, but there's just different ways to think about everything. And sometimes when we're just in our role, when we're just in the employee role, we only think about those struggles in the employee role, and we think about how we suspect the grass is greener on the other side. And when we're in the entrepreneur world, we think, oh, the employee world might be a little bit better because of their security, and that looks a little bit greener, but that's not actually factual either. So it's just, there's pros and cons to both sides of it, I think. And maybe not pros and cons is the right words to be using, but there's draws and drawbacks to each path you choose. So as with anything, I'm sure.
Right. And then there's also the change in your income stream, and your cash flow, because now, you went from, like you said, consistent paycheck deposit in your account twice a month, and, where now, it's a different number, so, and, now figuring out, how to manage, the revenue from your sales, how to invest back. And then obviously, just your personal income needs, and how you have to, you know, think through that differently than what you did before. And so again, for entrepreneurs who are making that, that's why you need to probably make sure you're doing it with a cushion, a cushion of money that you feel like, okay, I've got to, you shouldn't be going into an entrepreneurial opportunity broke, or even a sales or commission only type of career if you have no cushion, because, you just don't want that, first bad month, or a couple bad months in a row, and now you're already behind on your bills, and now the pressure is just mounting on top of everything else. So so again, Emily did a great job of being in a good position that way, to be able to kind of weather a couple of months that were less than what she was accustomed to bringing in the door.
Very much
So
so.
yeah.
I thought I feel as though I became quite good at budgeting in my adult years. But then when you become an entrepreneur, I realize you have to be even better at budgeting. So if you're not good at budgeting, you might want to be good at budgeting prior to becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, I was just going to ask you if there was maybe one tip that you could, share with our listeners. But I think that's the tip right there. I mean, because, budgeting, at least in my experience, it's, and you're an entrepreneur, you really have to be nimble on and very selective on the new bills that you decide to take on, and how often those bills come, and, is everything really a necessity or what, you're kind of picking and choosing a little bit differently when you're not quite sure what the number is going to be in your bank account each month versus when you do know what the number is going to be. So it sounds like budgeting is the tip of the day, is to get good at it.
Well, probably the better tip, and I'm sure Dad's itching to say this one, but I'm going to take it from him, is, and I learned this when I was an employee and I would get pay raises every so often and whatnot, but to not change your lifestyle as you make more money. That way you have the funds, if there is an emergency of some kind in your personal life, or um, something drastically changes in your life. But as an entrepreneur, so that you can take that quote unquote extra money or start budgeting more money to put back into your business. So you might start having some good months and some good, commissions, and you might, feel yourself a little bit and start looking at your car a little cockeyed, like, ooh, I could maybe have a better car, or, but there's nothing wrong with that car. So, just save that money or put it back into the business. So that's probably, yes, the goal of entrepreneurs entrepreneurs is to be your own boss and make money, but that doesn't mean you have to spend it. So
I'm curious, did you learn that being an entrepreneur, or were we raised with that being
we
drilled into our head?
we were very much raised that way. So, when Dad referenced I had some less than stellar commission months, or what I was accustomed to, he was the first person I called and had some choice words too. So he instilled that in us, but he has to listen to our complaints as well.
Yeah.
A little bit at least.
That's why I have my 10-year-old Honda that's been paid off, and it works just fine. And it has a key. This lady at the grocery store the other day, and she goes, "Oh, you actually have a key for your car?" Yes, ma'am, I do. Because everyone has the push buttons, which actually Emily, Jennifer, and Dad probably have push buttons. But yes, ma'am, I have a key to my car. How about that? Isn't that
I
what are you
have a
trying to
That's
key.
say?
not
It's just in the key fob. I don't need the key.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Keeps us
let's make
humble.
sure we talk about her recognition,
Yes.
before we
So yes. So Emily won Agent of the Year.
new agent of the year.
New Agent of the Year. I'm sorry
Right.
for
Yeah.
American National. So it was from my point of view, it was really uh I was just so ecstatic as Emily got up there, and she won this award and beat out her male counterparts. And so tell us a little bit about that,
Um, I'm. I mean, it was great. What can I say? Who doesn't like to walk up on a stage and get recognized? Well, I'm sure some people don't like it, but I take after my dad, and I do like to go up onto a stage and be recognized and hear people clapping for me. Was it a goal of mine in 2023? It was. In all honesty, was I focused on that specific goal to be new agent of the year? No, I focused more on selling insurance, because if I produce and I sell insurance, then I'll probably get new agent of the year. So, it wasn't until probably the fall where they started releasing, the points, who was in the running, what position you were in. And, I was feeling pretty good about myself because I was up there. But as the days ticked on and the year, we got close to the end of the year, people were trailing me pretty good, men to be specific. And, naturally, as a whole, our family is very competitive. And so I started to get a little annoyed, a little bit pissed off too, I would say, that they were so close behind me. So I, I did what I could. All the way up until December 31st, did what I could and followed the lead, asked for help when I needed it. And It wasn't until probably mid-January so that I actually found out if I had gotten the award yet, because of how close it was at the end. And I felt pretty good when I got it. Again, I think a lot of it was because I did beat out a male. Insurance, there is a lot of women in insurance, but there is more men, and it's very male dominated. So, I think it just felt good to kind of stand in front of them and accept the award. But again, it's at the same time, it's as much as I got the new agent of the award, it was so much help from so many people on the back end. It was really the reason why I got it. But it was cool. It was something fun to work towards.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
And again, just for our listeners, I mean, we're looking at, again, this is across the country with, American National Insurance Company, which is our primary company. So, yeah, so it was quite an achievement and quite a recognition. And so, uh-oh,
We lost her.
we lost her.
That's
So,
okay.
so again, we were really, really proud, that night to be part of that. And I think, and I know when Emili talks about, that achievement, like she just did, it's important, I think, for others that, are reaching for big goals, is realize that, there's a lot of people out there that are wanting and eager to come alongside you and help you, so when you talk about what your goals are, don't be afraid to say, I need help, whether it's just advice, knowledge, maybe somebody, depending on the type of business, to, help come alongside you somehow with, different meetings. I know Jen, we're talking about, renewing, your lease and going over lease contracts for your business. So for someone who, is new to all that, don't try to navigate that all by yourself without being familiar with how it works. See if you can, connect with someone that, that can help you, determine, what's the best options and how to maybe make counter offers and that type of thing. So I guess it comes back to mentors, coaches, all those things. And again, in Emili's case, obviously being part of, family business and having, an extensive background already, that really did give her, some real good support, for that hitting that big of an achievement. So, but at the end of the day, you're the one that did it. I've known a lot of people that were able to get a lot of support, but they heard but didn't listen, or they learned and they didn't execute. So you did. So very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think one inspiring message that Emili gives us today is that it's never too late, right? It's never too late to grow into a different position, to grow into entrepreneurship, to try something new, to take risk. And I think I wasn't able to be there in Texas with you guys, but one thing that really hit home for me was just that picture of Emili winning that award, surrounded by a bunch of men. So again, just another female entrepreneur that's out, trying to serve the community and serve her clients, and obviously doing a really great job. So congratulations to you, Em, and thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we lost Stacy, so I'll take over. But thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.